Abrus precatorius, commonly known as Jequirity bean or Rosary Pea, is a herbaceous flowering plant in the bean family Fabaceae. It is a slender, perennial climber with long, pinnate-leafleted leaves that twines around trees, shrubs, and hedges. The plant is best known for its seeds, which are used as beads and in percussion instruments, and which are toxic because of the presence of abrin. Ingestion of a single seed, well chewed, can be fatal to both adults and children. The plant is native to Asia and Australia. It has a tendency to become weedy and invasive where it has been introduced. Abrus precatorius is commonly known as Jequirity, 3 crab's eye, or Rosary Pea, paternoster pea, for love pea, precatory pea or bean, 3 prayer bead, 4 John Crow bead, 5 coral bead, for red bead vine, for country licorice, for Indian licorice, wild licorice, 4 Jamaica wild licorice, Olinda in Sri Lanka, Sinhala, Kundumani in Tamil, Kundramani, for giddy giddy, 3 Jumbi bead, Rati in Hindi, Reti, Redi, or weather plant. In Africa, Abrus precatorius is known as Uwalabo Yoruba, Odo Barabir, Igbo, Inzakara Hausa, and Nemenua IB in southwestern Nigeria, and Obirakwara in Ghana. Abrus precatorius is a severely invasive plant in warm temperate to tropical regions, so much so that it has become effectively pantropical in distribution. It had been widely introduced by humans, and the brightly colored and hard-shelled seeds had been spread by birds. By the end of the 20th century, it had been proclaimed as an invasive weed in many regions, including some in Belize, Caribbean islands, Hawaii, Polynesia, and parts of the mainland United States. In Florida in particular, the plant has invaded undisturbed pinelands and hammocks, including the vulnerable pine rocklands. Once Abrus precatorius plants have grown to maturity under favorable conditions, their deep roots are extremely difficult to remove, and the plant's aggressive growth, hard-shelled seeds, and ability to sucker renders an infestation extremely difficult to eradicate and makes it very difficult to prevent. Reinfestation. Herbicides such as glyphosate are effective, but need skilled application if they are not to do more harm than good. The toxin abrin is a dimer consisting of 2 protein subunits, termed A and B. The B chain facilitates abrin's entry into a cell by bonding to certain transport proteins on cell membranes, which then transport the toxin into the cell. Once inside the cell, the A chain prevents protein synthesis by inactivating the 2,8-sRNA of the ribosome. 1 molecule of abrin will inactivate up to 1,500 ribosomes per second. Symptoms are identical to those of ricin, except abrin is more toxic by almost 2 orders of magnitude. The fatal dose of abrin is approximately 1/75th that of the fatal dose of ricin, though the abrinin ingested seeds may be absorbed much more slowly than the ricin in Ricinus communis, even if the seeds are chewed and the coat penetrated, allowing time for successful rescue efforts in at least some cases. 13. Abrin has an LD50 of only 0.56 microgram per kilogram in mice, and Kingsbury lists a toxic dose in humans at 0.00015% body weight, or approximately 0.1 milligrams for a 150 pounds human. 14. Ingesting intact seeds may result in no clinical findings, as they can pass undigested through the gastrointestinal tract because of their hard shell. This plant is also poisonous to horses. Symptoms of poisoning include nausea, vomiting, convulsions, liver failure, and death, usually after several days. The seeds of Abrus precatorius are much valued in native jewelry for their bright coloration. Most beans are black and red, reminiscent of a ladybug, though other colors exist. Jewelry making with Jequirity seeds is rumored to be somewhat hazardous. There are persistent reports that the workers who pierce the seeds in order to thread them can suffer poisoning or even death from a pinprick, but there seems to be little evidence. An online search found 265 scientific papers referring to Abrus precatorius, but not one of them dealt with occupational poisoning. In Trinidad and the West Indies, the brightly colored seeds are strung into bracelets and worn around the wrist or ankle to ward off jumbies or evil spirits and malu, the evil eye. The Tamils use Abrus seeds of different colors. The red variety with black eye is the most common, but there are black, white, and green varieties as well. In December 2011, a recall was issued for bracelets made using jequirity beans sold by the Eden Project and other outlets in the UK. Unit of measureth seeds of Abrus precatorius are very consistent in weight, even under different moisture conditions due to the water-impermeable seed coat. Formerly, Indians used these seeds to weigh gold using a measure called a rati, where 8 rati as a weapon according to the 1898 King's American Dispensatory. Abrus seeds are the agents by which the chamar, or native Skinner caste of India, carry on the felonious poisoning of cattle for the purpose of securing their hides. This is done by means of small spikes, called sui needles or sutarials, which are prepared by soaking the awl in a thin paste of the water-soaked, pounded seeds, and then drying the weapon in the sun, after which it is oiled and sharpened upon stone, affixed in a handle, and then used to puncture the skin of the animal. An 1881 work by the District Superintendent of Police for British-occupied Bengal details the preparation and use of the sutari for the killing of cattle and in at least 6 murder cases. A native promised a reduced sentence for the poisoning of a fellow villager's bullock in exchange for his testimony, demonstrated the technique. First, the outer shells of red or white seeds were cracked between stones. Then the 2 cotyledons from within 30 or 40 seeds were soaked in water for 10 minutes. These seeds were ground to a paste and rolled up into 6 sharp-ended 1-inch cones, which were inserted into either end of 3 pieces of straw and exposed to the moderate influence of the sun to dry, whereupon they regained some of the original hardness of the seed. In this account, the sutaries were described as being these cones, entirely made up of the hardened seed paste. The dried cones were checked for sharpness, and if need be, wetted with a brick and racet. Finally, to prevent softening, they were waterproofed by burying them for a night in some sort of animal grease. This process was repeated with 2 more cones to the base of the animal's tongue. The bull died after 30.5 hours, leaving no visible trace of the sutaries, but a small amount of pus at the wound site, whose swelling had mostly subsided by the time of death. The 1890 Pharmacographia Ithaca gives an account, based in part on the above work, describing the sutaris, or sui, the terms being equivalent, depending on district, with the former based on the object's resemblance to the point of a cobbler's awl. It describes the sutaris as 3/4 inch long and weighing 1.5 to 2 grains, varying in color from dirty white to black, and describes the handle as 3 to 3.5 inches long and frequently made from 2 joints of bamboo wood, with sockets 1/4 to 3/8 inch deep and with the cavity exposed at one end for storage of additional. The weapons were sometimes made with the milky juice of Calotropis gigantea instead of water, which was said to speed the effect, and were sometimes supplemented with metallic mercury, datura, aconite, and or arsenic. It is added that any attempt to withdraw the sutari by pulling at the pieces sticking out invariably breaks it, a portion being left in the wound. One man murdered by a single blow with a pair of sutaris died after 3 days. Another, from whom the material had been successfully excised, died 3 days later of tetanus. The price of one of these killings was said to total 16.5 rupees. The killers were punished by transportation for life. In traditional medicine, Abrus precatorius, called Golaganji in Kannada, Kandumani in Tamil, Guruvinda Ginja in Telugu, and Kunikuru in Malayalam, has been used in Siddha medicine for centuries. The white variety is used to prepare oil that is claimed to be an aphrodisiac. A tea is made from the leaves and used for fevers, coughs, and colds. Seeds are poisonous and therefore are only consumed after heat treatment. 25. The Tamil Siddhars knew about the toxic effects in plants and suggested various methods, which is called Sufi Seifel, or purification. This is done by boiling the seeds in milk and then drying them. Like with castor oil, the protein toxin is denatured when subjected to high temperatures, rendering it innocuous. The 1889 book The Useful Native Plants of Australia records that the roots of this plant are used in India as a substitute for liqueurs, though they are somewhat bitter. In Java, the roots are considered demulcent. The leaves, when mixed with honey, are applied to swellings, and in Jamaica are used as a substitute for tea. Under the name of jequirity, the seeds have recently been employed in cases of ophthalmia, a use to which they have long been put in India and Brazil. The plant is also used in Ayurveda and is said to promote hair growth. It is sometimes used as an ingredient in Indian hair products. The leaves of Abrus precatorius are used by the indigenous communities of the western region of Ghana as an anti-diabetic medicine. Laboratory study of extracts of variety of pharmacological effects have been observed in rodents, but have not been demonstrated clinically in humans, including an ethanolic extract of Abrus precatorius was found to have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and analgesic potential in rodents. A methanolic extract of A. precatorius seeds causes reversible alterations in the estrous cycle pattern and completely blocked ovulation in Sprague-Dawley rats. Studies on aqueous, methanolic, and chloroform extracts of Abrus precatorius showed greater inhibitory activity against a number of disease-causing bacteria, such as Bacillus subtilis, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Staphylococcus aureus, Salmonella typhimurium, and Escherichia coli. A dried ethanolic leaf extract of Abrus precatorius showed pancreatoprotective effects and glucose-lowering effects in Sprague-Dawley rats. This was found in another study to be through modulation of insulin and GLP-1 inversely with glucagon, non-competitive inhibition of alpha amylase and alpha-glucosidase, free radical scavenging, and recovery of damaged, necroapoptosized pancreatic beta cells. Cultural significance: in Rajasthan, India, Churmi song is associated with this plant. There is also evidence that this plant has significant economic value to the traditional Zulu people, due to the fact that it is a form of income for Zulu people that make and sell crafts that were made from the seeds of this plant. During the Tang Dynasty, Wang Wei wrote a poem titled One-Hearted, which most likely refers to Abrus precatorius as a red bean in Mathura, India. The god Vishnu and Krishna is associated with the seeds of the plant. Lord Krishna is sometimes depicted wearing the seeds